Welcome to Total Reddit with another new story of r/cheating stories. I am Chris Everett with you throughout the whole story. Easter throw away husband. Before jumping the story, please hit the subscribe button to know when the next video goes live. I, 28 male, found evidence my wife, 27, was having an affair on Easter Sunday. The next day, I confronted her with irrefutable evidence. I left and have not spoken to her, nor do I plan to. We are divorcing. But as a pointless gesture, as utterly destroyed as I am. My wife and I had what I thought was the perfect relationship. We were best friends and seemed to benefit each other in a multitude of ways. We grew up together and dated our last 2 years of high school all the way through college. Physically, we were each other's first everything of a sexual nature. We attended the same university in different fields of study and married 2 years after graduation. We moved to a major city near our hometown to be near our families. I got a job making a very decent salary with benefits. She got a job teaching at a high-profile private school, which she loved. Together we made great money, so we always spent so much time together. We traveled. We dined out frequently, and every night felt like a date night. Even among a group of friends, there was always the two of us together. We were so stupidly happy they could have put our goofy love grins as the sample photo in picture frames for sale. Our sex life was great and had always been. Less than 4 times a week was considered a dry. We had a great life in general. Well, at least that's what I thought. I thought we have had a great life together, but I've come to realize all of that was a lie. We were planning to try and have children soon. This totally blindsided me. I cannot stop. I wanted to be a father someday, now that's an impossibility. Easter morning at the break of dawn, we were supposed to help at our church hiding Easter eggs on the property for kids to find later. We got up and threw on some clothes, without showering before driving to the church together. We groggily helped hide obvious eggs for the small children, and more secretive eggs for the older kids later that day. My wife took many pictures on her phone of us as well as many members of the congregation. We all ended up having coffee and donuts while conversing before heading home. I'd driven to the church, but I got my wife to drive us home. She commented she was going back to bed for a few hours when we got back. I wanted to preview the college basketball championship game the next night because my father was a Baylor graduate. We'd brought my wife's iPad along, which I used all the time like it was my very own. I never expected to see anything, and she didn't anticipate it showing me anything. I'm not very tech savvy. So, I still don't know what happened exactly. But I was reading an article as we were walking into the house. In the lower right corner that said something about photos, then picture after picture appeared one atop the other. I don't know if my wife's phone was syncing to the iPad or our Wi-Fi. Again, I'm at a loss. I saw the pictures were the ones my wife had just taken minutes before outside the church, so I continued reading. Suddenly a few pictures flashed by that looked like they contained nudity, which was very out of character for my wife. I tried tapping on the pictures to go back. But it was like the photos weren't on the iPad, it just showed each one to me for a file on the iPad, but nothing remotely pornographic was stored on the iPad that I could find. I realized none of the photos taken at the church were on the iPad, yet I'd seen them flash by. My wife went into the kitchen and got a bottle of water to take with her as she headed back to bed. I watched her walk up the stairs, and for the first time in the history of our relationship, I felt like she might be hiding something from me. I searched every file I could find on the iPad hoping I could find what I'd seen. But I eventually realized to ease my mind, I'd have to check my wife's phone. I walked upstairs and found her sleeping soundly in our bed. I grabbed her phone off of the charger and took it into our bathroom. We'd never had an open or closed phone policy. We just used each other's device at will with nothing to hide. So, discovering her passcode had been changed made my heart nearly stop. I tried it again and again at different speeds. No doubt, it had been changed. My eyes welled up with tears just knowing my wife was probably high. It was a sign that there was something unknown to me that I truly needed to know. I walked back in the bedroom and placed her phone back in the charger. Part of me wanted to believe I was crazy or that I just thought I saw something risque, but my mind was playing tricks on me. I had actually imagined discovering what I saw was nothing carnal and laughing about what I thought it actually was. But the passcode got me. I tried acting as normally as possible. She knew me better than anyone, so keeping all emotions welled up while at the same time being sneaky was difficult. But late that afternoon, when she was in the kitchen, I heard her text alert. I popped around the corner just in time to see her enter a brand new code. So, I knew I wasn't losing my mind completely. I again took her phone into the bathroom. I entered the new code and opened her photos file. To my surprise, nothing close to a photo containing nudity was anywhere to be found. I even found the photos she'd taken at the church that morning. Nothing pornographic was among them. I was just about to close the app when I decided to look for deleted photos. To my surprise, I found 2 photos of my wife nude and partially nude, along with a naked shot of some guy other than me. I quickly sent all 3 pics to my own phone, then deleted the text as well as the photos. I placed my wife's phone back in the holder, walked to the downstairs restroom to make less noise, and vomited like I'd been given ipecac. I'd never seen either picture of my wife before. She didn't do that sort of thing, and I didn't really desire it. I could always have her to myself soon enough given the next opportunity, and I already knew how beautiful she was naked. We just felt like photos like that could always come back to haunt people. She and I were too united as one. We had no need to share our intimacy with the world. Or so I thought. I sure didn't know who the guy was in the picture. I looked at it and felt anger even having no idea who he was, or if my wife knew him in any way. After I stopped hurling my guts up, I laid in the floor and cried like a little child. I had never cried harder in my life, but I just knew something was wrong. I could feel it. I got a few hours of sleep next to my wife before I had to get up to go to work. Every project I was working on got put on hold as I researched how to recover texts from a phone. As it turns out, since the plan we had was in my name, through my employer, I could access every message and pic sent via text. Long story short, I recovered raunchy messages, selfies, and yes, even pics and video together, all there. I could say I could throw up at 2 a.m. I went down to my car and cried so hard I thought my eyes would bleed. I couldn't imagine the nightmare I was living was real. But I knew instantly everything with my wife, my best friend, was over. And every dream I had was gone. I yelled primal screams of rage. I was thankful she wasn't there at my moment of discovery. I didn't know what I was capable of, and I didn't want her to see me like that. I couldn't think what to do, where to go. I was just in shock, and the person I would have turned to at a time like that was the very person who had destroyed me. I stopped crying and just sat there, in a complete daze, unsure what to do, but certain I didn't want to do anything. I knew what had started off as an unproductive morning was certain to be an unproductive day. I went back inside, met with each team member on the company project we were doing, then left work. I didn't even want to look at my wife, so I certainly wasn't going to go by her school to confront her. I just drove around for hours in shock. I went from tears to rage and back again. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. I thought of emailing her and both our families all the information I'd found, and then driving my car off a ravine. I truly didn't want to continue living, and I certainly didn't want to deal with the confrontation to end our marriage once and for all. My wife usually got home a few hours from work before I did. So, I parked down the street from her school to see where she went when she got off from work. I had it in my mind, from what I'd found, she'd probably head to her lover's house. But she left and went straight home, oblivious I was following her most of the way. I'd printed out pages and pages of texts and pictures at work to show her what I knew. I anticipated confronting her and her denying anything, until I showed her proof leading to much conversation and fighting. I didn't want that. I didn't want to ever lay eyes on her again, talk to her, or be in her presence ever again. Those pictures in particular ended all love I ever had for her in an instant. In fact, in the course of a day, I went from loving her more than I knew it possible for a human to love to hating her with every fiber of my being. How she could do to me what she did was mind-boggling. We were done the second she cheated. I was just the last to get the memo. My mind was all over the place. I just wanted to go into the house, packed without seeing her or saying a word if possible. When I walked in the front door, she was sitting on the couch texting. She may have been texting her mom, her sister, most anyone, but I knew she wasn't texting me. And that day I'd learned the odds were high. She was busy doing more things that could cause me more pain. She smiled and noted that I was home from work early. I didn't say a word to her. I just walked down the hall into our bedroom. I got a suitcase out of the closet and began packing clothes for my stay in a hotel room. She came into the bedroom, saw me packing, and asked if I had to go on a sudden business trip. I stopped what I was doing, looked directly at her with a stare of absolute loathing, then continued packing. She walked up to me, asked me what was wrong, and placed her touch like I'd just had some dead animal carcass filled with maggots touch me. I turned and yelled at her loudly to never touch me again, before pushing her away. When she tried to ask what was wrong, I called her a disease-filled whore that deserved to have a fiery hot poker inserted into her privates to keep her from procreating. She had the audacity to look shocked and hurt. That's when I pulled out the stack of papers I'd copied, threw them onto the bed, closed my suitcase, and began to leave. She sat down to look at the papers, scream, "No," before breaking down in tears and running to catch me. I made it out the door to my car and threw my suitcase in the back. She managed to make it outside before I pulled off. I extended my middle finger in her direction as I drove away. My phone started going off like a casino slot machine, so I just turned it off. My plan was to completely ghost her and let whatever steps needed to be done for divorce taken care of by my lawyer. I didn't want to know how they met, why it happened, and what exactly had occurred between them. She knew damn well infidelity was a deal breaker. Why she was even calling, I had no idea, but didn't care. I got a motel room about a mile from my job and checked in. I walked to an adjacent restaurant and forced down some food I didn't want to eat. Back in the room, I used the motel phone to call my mom and tell her where I was. She'd been worried as she'd been one of the first people my wife had called after I left. I asked my mom if she'd been told why I left, and she admitted she hadn't. I told her what I'd found, explained we would be divorcing, and I'd be looking for a job, so I never had to run into my STBXW or any of her family again. I asked her to keep what she knew between her, my dad, and siblings. My mom cried. I mean, I wasn't there to see it, but it sounded like ugly crying and disbelief. But the realization my wife and her family were no longer any part of our lives hurt. I'm sure knowing she'd never hold a grandchild fathered by me hurt a lot too. But she knew how I was raised, so she also knew I was done. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for the next stories.